Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
Leading a frontal assault.
Welcome to the Infowars Nightly News. Today is Wednesday, June 14th, 2017. I'm Millie Weaver, and here's what's coming up on the news tonight.
Tonight, confirmed the gunman was an anti-Trump leftist. 66-year-old James Hodgkinson, the gunman who targeted Republican lawmakers during an attempted massacre this morning, is now known to be a huge Bernie Sanders supporter who called President Donald Trump a traitor and wanted to destroy him. Meanwhile, Senator Rand Paul says the quick response of the officers on the scene prevented a serious incident from turning into an all-out massacre. And look who's celebrating the shooting of Representative Scalise. That's right, the tolerant progressive left. And they hit social media today to reveal their true violent nature. All that plus much more up next on the Infowars Nightly News.
The globalist social engineers are not just targeting us with propaganda. They are manipulating our genetics. We are being targeted at every level by estrogen mimickers that lower our testosterone and other hormones and natural compounds that the body needs. The key is to be aware of this attack and to fight back against it. After consulting top doctors, nutritionists, pharmacists, and others, we have developed what I believe is the ultimate non-GMO organic super male vitality formula sourced from powerful organic herbs harvested around the planet and then concentrated for maximum potency. I've always believed in nutrition and herbs. Super Male Vitality was developed to activate your body's own natural processes instead of using synthetic chemicals. Super Male Vitality by Infowars Life is so powerful that I only take half the recommended dose. Visit InfowarsLife.com today to secure your Super Male Vitality and other powerful products from Infowars Life.
Check out these amazing deals at InfowarsStore.com. 25% off BioTrue Selenium, a powerful antioxidant and back in stock Super Blue fluoride-free toothpaste. Now 33% off. And while you're there, check out the Total Oral Care Pack, which combines our organic mouthwash with the amazing Super Blue toothpaste. Now 37% off. All available right now at InfowarsStore.com.
I'm Millie Weaver, and I'll be taking you guys through the news tonight. Well, the big news today was when a 66-year-old liberal lunatic went to the GOP's baseball practice in Virginia and decided to go on a shooting rampage. That's right. He had the intention to massively assassinate numerous GOP members, and he would have been successful had it not been for this private security detail of Steve Scalise. Now, what's interesting here is that Senator Rand Paul was even there. I mean, we had numerous senators, congressmen, representatives all there. They witnessed this. They were definitely scared. You could tell it in the way they were talking about it. But what's interesting here is this man, James T. Hodgkinson. Now, of course, as soon as everybody finds out who this shooter is, they immediately start to look into this person. And it turns out that this guy was a Bernie Sanders supporting leftist. Now, Bernie Sanders did come out and address that when that went around in the media, and he did actually speak out against this type of violence. It's not okay to go on a shooting rampage because you ideologically disagree with someone. I mean, my gosh. Turns out that this shooter was also a huge fan of Rachel Maddow. Wow, what a surprise. He was also a viewer of the John Oliver Show and the Daily Show. So he was a partaker in the leftist media. And it's no wonder when you've seen these celebrities and these people all coming out, speaking out and speaking out against President Trump. Now, if we do a little bit of a flashback here, Tim Kaine, not too long ago, had actually spoken and said that people needed to fight in the streets in resistance to President Trump. And now here you see we have GOP members that were shot. I mean, badly injured. It could have been so much worse. There could have been a massive tragedy here where we saw a lot of people dead. But thank goodness that some people were carrying guns. And if you're wondering why more people were not carrying guns, more of these representatives weren't, it's because of the strict gun laws where they live. The majority of them live in D.C., and therefore they cannot have guns in D.C. But what's interesting is we had even seen Loretta Lynch, who had called for progressives to march, bleed, and die in resistance to President Trump. So we've had some pretty radical leftists out there calling for violence. So is it any wonder that now we're seeing people going and shooting up representatives? I mean, this is ridiculous, guys. We're seeing people die. I mean, thank goodness that nobody died during this, but it was a close call. We're lucky that that bullet happened to hit Representative Scalise in the hip and not somewhere else where it could have been fatal. It was a serious, serious injury. Now, what's also interesting is that this attack was most definitely inspired by the media. I mean, the media has been perpetuating this myth, this idea that Trump has been colluding with the Russians, that Trump is comparable to Hitler. So it's seriously no wonder that you see these leftists out there, you know, going up and trying to shoot someone and kill someone. They actually believe it's that serious that they need to go and kill somebody urgently to try and, you know, stop this Hitler regime from happening. My goodness, it's not anything like this. It's called propaganda. It's called being misled. Now, what's interesting here is leftists were quick to then criticize the GOP because they know that the GOP, they are supporters of the NRA. So some of these tweets were, Steve Scalise has A+ NRA rating. Avid gun supporter. Hope he appreciates this display of Second Amendment rights. So we have these leftists that are just being so cold. They don't even care. They're going to start mocking these people that were shot, that were terrified. But in reality, Rand Paul was interviewed and he witnessed it. And he said, if it had not been for a gun, the fact that Capitol Police prevented this massacre, if none of them had had guns there, then this gunman, this assailant, would have just had open play. I mean, the guy came with he came with a semi-automatic rifle, and he had tons of reload of ammo, and he could have done serious, serious damage. Now, this is kind of interesting here. This Virginia governor claims he came out and did a press conference after all of this. And of course, he's a Democrat. But what's kind of funny here is he claimed that 93 million Americans die from guns every day. Well, I'm wondering if he's using Common Core math to derive that figure there, because given that there's 300 and something million Americans, that would not make sense to have 93 million Americans die every day. So let's go ahead and roll this clip because it's pretty funny.
Do you think anything more needs to do to protect politicians?
Well, let me say this. I think we need to do more to protect all of our citizens. I have long advocated, this is not what today is about, but there are too many guns on the street. We lose 93 million Americans a day to gun violence. I mean, I've long talked about this. Background checks, shutting down gun show loopholes. Yeah, that's not for today's discussion, but it's not just about politicians.
Governor, can you
we worry about this every day for all of our citizens.
Now, this was Governor Terry McAuliffe, And he was the one who said this, which is pretty funny. It's a little bit of a blooper, but that's completely exaggerated, obviously. Well, what's interesting also is I wanted to read this quick quote from Rand Paul. He says, "I can tell you that I think with absolute certainty, nobody would have survived without the Capitol Hill police. They saved everyone's life, incredibly brave, and they deserve everyone's praise." So without these brave heroes that had firearms, we could have seen Rand Paul dead. A lot of these other representatives dead. Steve Scalise dead. I mean, that is just absolutely shocking and mind-boggling. There was so much crossfire that was going on. You could hear it just bang, 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 nonstop gunfire going on. This guy came with the intention to wipe out these politicians, essentially. Now, what's interesting is that CNN tried to justify the violence against these Republicans. It was kind of interesting. Host Wolf Blitzer was interviewing this gunman's friend, and this friend says that, you know, the gunman was not evil. He just was sick and tired of the politics. Well, that's ridiculous. Why didn't Wolf Blitzer speak out and say, no, give me a break. You have to be evil in order to go out there with the intention to kill people, to mow people down, to traumatize families. I mean, for every person you see out there, you can imagine they all have families. A lot of them have children. It's completely wrong. It doesn't matter if somebody disagrees with you ideologically. Now, what's interesting here is that now GOP lawmakers are calling for Congress members to have concealed carry licenses and the ability to carry in D.C. A lot of them work in D.C. They live in D.C. or not necessarily live in D.C., but a lot of them work in D.C. and they have to be in D.C. And it is a major risk for them to be going there. They are public figures. They receive death threats in the mail or over social media, or maybe even in person. So they should be able to have a concealed carry. And this was Republican Representative Barry Loudermilk, who's been the person who's really been calling for this and for lawmakers to be able to conceal carry firearms in the nation's capital, because the only reason why this assailant was stopped was because Scalise had private security there that were carrying, and usually like somebody like Rand Paul or a lot of these other GOP members, they don't typically have private security on them. But because Scalise is a higher ranking member of the GOP, he typically did. So what they're saying is if it had not been for Scalise, there would have been a lot more deaths and a lot more carnage. Well, there's really so much here, guys, but just remember the mainstream media has been spinning this. They've been perpetuating this violence against Trump, the violence against Trump supporters, violence against Republicans, GOP members. It's only going to get worse. It's only going to escalate, because how many people do you see, Democrats out there, calling for this to stop, for this violence to stop? I haven't been seeing it at all on social media. It's pretty disturbing that we're not seeing that. But just remember, Infowars is still having this $200,000 in cash prizes for the Operation Expose Terrorist Media and Kathy Griffin. So make sure you go and get your CNN is ISIS t-shirts. Go out there in front of these mainstream media perpetuators of propaganda and photobomb them. Go out there and show them that, you know, people know that they're fake. People know that it's fraud, but unfortunately, not enough people do, and people believe their hysteria that they perpetuate, and then you have mass shootings. So guys, stick around, because up next, we have some awesome reports, one from John Bone, where he talks about this leftist lunacy.
Days ago, A standing ovation for the simulation of the assassination of the President of the United States. And now a baseball practice loaded with Republican congressmen and staffers became a live mass shooting event. James T. Hodgkinson was identified as the shooter that railed off over 50 shots at the 100-year-old traditional practice baseball event that included children. He was killed by Capitol Police.
Congressman Steve Scalise, a member of House leadership, was shot and badly wounded and is now in stable condition at the hospital, along with two very courageous Capitol Police officers.
And all of this occurring ominously on President Donald Trump's 71st birthday.
I can tell you that I think with absolute certainty nobody would have survived without the Capitol Hill Police. They saved everybody's life. Incredibly brave and deserve everyone's praise, because with this guy, who knows how heavily armed he was, but nobody else had a weapon, so he was just killing everyone.
And he didn't exactly know where the shots were coming from, but it was loud, it was constant. So I actually ran and jumped in the dugout. That's when I got scuffed up. That's when I got scuffed up. And when I got in the dugout, we realized the shooter was still active. There was a child in the dugout. His children come out and watch us play.
But the House Majority Whip, Scalise, was shot in the hip and transported to the hospital along with 4 others. Before details of Hodgkinson's identity were even available, Virginia Governor McAuliffe clumsily called for gun control.
There are too many guns on the street. We lose 93 million Americans a day to gun violence. I mean, I've long talked about this. Background check, shutting down gun show loopholes. That's not for today's discussion, but it's not just about politicians. We worry about this every day for all of our citizens. So we've got to look at this, but I'm not going to get anywhere near the investigation. The FBI is leading this. But this, obviously, with 93 million people a day, it's just something.
Sir, just checking, 93 million is a big number. Did you mean to say 93 million? That's a big number. Are you sure about
93 million, 93 individuals a day.
The Belleville News Democrats reports Hodgkinson is a member of a number of anti-Republican groups on Facebook, including one called Terminate the Republican Party. Hodgkinson took a Democratic ballot in the primary election in 2016. Hodgkinson's Facebook page clearly shows that he was a Bernie Sanders supporter. The story was less than an hour old before the left's violent rhetoric was unleashed. Tariq Nasheed said, "So Representative Steve Scalise, who once spoke at a white supremacist event sponsored by David Duke, Google it, was shot today in Alexandria." Twitter user Malcolm Harris said, if the shooter has a serious health condition, then is taking pot shots at the GOP House leadership considered self-defense? Sonia Gupta tweeted, before you start dropping to your knees to pray for Steve Scalise, remember that he's a racist piece of shit and a hateful bigot. Technology writer Walt is Frozen said the attack will have a silver lining if the shooter was indeed targeting Republicans specifically. Twitter user Joe Quint said, Steve Scalise was shot in the hip in Alexandria, Virginia. It's as if karma literally bit him in the ass. How far will this go? The left is collectively and publicly embracing homicide as a political solution.
They've marched. They've bled. Yes, some of them have died. This is hard. Every good thing is. We have done this before. We can do this again.
This is not the first time someone in the public eye has been encouraging violence against Trump. Just last week, a Guardian columnist tweeted that it's about time for a presidential assassination. CEO Matt Harrigan went on an unhinged tirade, posting that he was going to kill the president-elect using a sniper rifle.
We can start by following Hungary's lead and passing laws to rid our country of the hundreds of millions of dollars George Soros is pouring in to set us on an inevitable path towards civil war. John Bound for Infowars.com.
We've taken thousands of years of known research and put it together with our own 4 years of seeking and testing to find the very best systems that God gave us through Mother Nature to detoxify the body. That's why I'm introducing Z-Shield, toxic metal and chemical defense support. It's made in the USA. It's filled with known compounds from nature that are absolutely associated with detoxifying the body, and it supports the InfoWar. It is a classical 360 win. Our formula at InfoWarsLife.com is, quite frankly, simple. We go out and look at the recognized research, and we take it to the next level of quality, of purity, and of strength. Because this is what I personally use for myself and my family. We've gone through 5 or 6 different permutations in the last 4 years since we launched Infowars Life to actually come up with this. This is the formula that I personally have been taking for over a year, and now we believe we have come as close to perfection when it comes to a detoxifier as you can possibly get. If you're not mitigating the pesticides, the heavy metals, the chemicals, if you're not trying to purify your water, if you're not trying to take products like Z-Shield that are full of known concentrated compounds that help purify our cells and our bodies, you're crazy. You owe it to yourself, you owe it to your family, and you owe it to the future of this country and the world that patriots stay as healthy and as clean and as focused as you can be, because we need you, the remnant of America, to reignite those brush fires to the next level and to be healthy and as focused as you can be. Because if you're sick, if you're over there on the sidelines and not in the fight, you're basically giving in to the New World Order. Thanks to your support and your prayers, together, we're changing the world. Now it's time to change our bodies with Z-Shield at InfoWarsLife.com.
I want to tell you about some of the products at InfoWarsStore.com. We are under constant attack. You know it by now from the mainstream media. They're trying to attack us on every level. Now with the YouTube scandal, they're demonetizing our channels, which again takes a huge chunk out of our income, which is why we always appreciate and rely on you getting the products, because that's how we stay afloat. They can't get to us that way. They can't pressure you to not buy the products. They don't have that power. And that's why you're the key to this entire operation. We have Super Blue fluoride-free toothpaste. Bubblegum flavor just arrived at InfoWarsStore.com. This is by listener request. Bubblegum flavored Super Blue toothpaste now available at InfoWarsStore.com in limited supply. Again, if you're not using fluoride-free toothpaste by now, you're absolutely insane. Harvard studies, it reduces IQ, it causes bone cancer. It's not great, let's just put it that way. And I've been using it for about, 15 years now? So you're going to buy it anyway, why not buy it from us? It's in limited supply, but it is available at InfoWarsStore.com with the new bubblegum flavor. Super Blue fluoride-free toothpaste, and it supports this network, which is under constant demonization and attack, because we don't take big fat checks from George Soros. We don't get put on extremist lists, even though they want us to. That's how they're taking away the YouTube money. That's why we need your support more than ever, because we're not funded by giant corporations who are now pulling the plug on YouTube as they move it into a TV thing, a Netflix model, to drown out independent voices. So support us by getting the products at InfoWarsStore.com.
David Knight here, and I want to talk to Lee Stranahan. He's based out of Washington, D.C. He was really the first in the media to be on site at this shooting. He was the first on the scene. He was doing a live Periscope. He was the featured Periscope earlier today. I want to talk to him about what he saw there, the interviews that he had with congressmen and people who are witnesses to the event. We also want to talk a little bit about where we draw the line on free speech, as well as Second Amendment issues that come up. So joining us now is Lee Stranahan. You can find him. He's the editor of thepopulist.us. He's also a co-host of Fault Lines on Sputnik, and you can find him on Twitter at Stranahan. Thank you for joining us, Lee.
David, thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it, being able to talk to the Infowars audience about this.
Well, it's great to have somebody there who is really the first on the scene from the media. Tell us what you saw when you arrived.
Sure. Well, I happen to live about 10 minutes away from where the shooting happened, so I was kind of dressed casually. This morning I was not dressed like this because it's miserably hot. So soon as we saw the shooting break, and I say that knowing you're in Austin, but it's really hot. It's Austin hot in D.C. So we headed down there immediately to the scene, and there was no media there, but the police had already cordoned it off. Now, I talked to a couple of witnesses, and the situation, what I warned people on the Periscope is, you never know as these situations evolve, what's a fact and what's not. You know, people will say, well, there's 3 shooters, and it turns out 3 people saw 1 shooter, right? So it turned out that everything I reported pretty much was, ended up being accurate, but we got lucky on that, which is it turned out the shooter had been killed. We now knew that. It turned out that there had been 5 people shot, 4 of whom were victims and 1 of whom was the shooter. But when I talked to witnesses, I talked to a gentleman who's the manager of a coffee shop, and he said he saw people fleeing. You have to remember, this is a nice area. People walk their dogs down there, right? And this happened very early in the morning. It happened about 7:15 in the morning. One thing that's obvious is that the police were on the scene right away, that they handled the situation very quickly.
Do you have any idea how long it took them to get to the scene?
Yeah, I asked about that. It seemed like it took about 3 minutes before the officers showed up and other people showed up as well. And I'll tell you, we interviewed Mo Brooks, who's the congressman from Alabama. And Brooks said, basically, thank God that Steve Scalise is in the line of succession for the president. The reason he said that is because if this had just been a few regular Congress people and senators, there would not have been security detail there. You with me?
That's right, because even congressmen in the District of Columbia are not allowed to carry firearms, they or their staff. And we had a Michigan Representative, Mike Bishop, said, look, if this had happened back in Georgia, I've got people on my staff who were carrying. If they'd seen this guy, they might have stopped him before he even shot anybody. But that's not allowed in the District of Columbia.
No, it's not. And even though we're in Virginia, which is slightly different, you know, these are people who are coming. You got to understand, you're literally about 12 minutes across the Potomac from D.C., right? So you don't want to be carrying. Does that make sense? Like even if you're...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We see this happen to people all the time who are used to carrying concealed. They go to the airport and they forget, oh, I got this gun still on me. If you get used to doing it, you carry it all, then you get entrapped when you get into one of these gun-free zones.
By the way, I saw David Frum, who's a conservative, who was
yeah, I put those quotes around it. Yeah, he's
he was saying, he pointed out very astutely, clearly he's a big firearms expert, that in Virginia concealed carrying a rifle is permitted.
Concealed carrying a rifle. Well, I guess, you know, as they said on CNN, he had an M1, so I guess if you can fit that M1 under your coat, you can carry it legally, huh?
Yeah, no, so you're seeing some of the footage from the Periscope my sons and I shot out there. We went out and we interviewed people. One of the things I asked David, and look, the way I do reporting, I try not to do any conjecture, particularly in a breaking story like this. So until I knew I asked a question which I still have not heard the answer to, which is, how did the shooter know that these guys were playing baseball there? Does that make sense?
Yeah, because he's from out of town. He's from Illinois.
That's exactly right. And I didn't know they were. How did he know? I don't know how he knew. But I'm curious to find that out. Hopefully, in the fullness of time, we'll find that out. But when Mo Burns was there, and he was shaken up. He was obviously shaken up, but he did a very good job of Mo Brooks, forgive me, of explaining, you know, what happened and what he saw, and really harrowing story, right? Of seeing Scalise dragging himself across the baseball field. But I asked him, I said, and again, this is without conjecture of who'd done the shooting, but given the fact that we saw Snoop Dogg in a music video shoot the president, and we saw Kathy Griffin with the beheaded head of Donald Trump, does he think there's an atmosphere of violence? And David, one thing I want to talk about here is, you know and I know that if this were the right, if this guy had a picture not of Bernie Sanders, but of Alex Jones.
Oh, yeah.
Or of Donald Trump, the media would spend the next 5 days talking about right-wing violence, right? That's what they would talk about. Now, the left, and I know this because I'm a student of history, and I did a film Steve Bannon directed called Occupy Unmasked. I'm currently directing the sequel to that, where we talk about the Black Panther movement and how it bleeds into Black Lives Matter. I know there's a history of violence at the left that the left media never talks about. For instance, I talked about this with Black Lives Matter. You and I have talked about it before. Assata Shakur, a convicted murderer, is a hero of the Black Lives Matter movement. I have never heard the mainstream media mention that one time, not once, ever.
That's right.
So it's very interesting to me that when the immediate news came out, we know who the killer is. They didn't show the fact he's got a big smiling picture of Bernie Sanders. Now, that being said, is this Bernie Sanders' fault? No, I'm not saying that.
That's right. He came out with a very clear, unequivocal statement saying, I do not want to see any violence. This is unacceptable in our society and so forth. This is a despicable act. But, of course, if this were Donald Trump, they would continue to hammer him, say, but do you disavow? But do you disavow? No matter how comprehensive the statement is, they would continue to ask him that. And I think it's interesting also, we've had others who come out here. They clearly got the idea that they should, we've got this ever-increasing heated rhetoric. We had Loretta Lynch, if you remember, said that progressives need to march, bleed, and die in the streets. So they're getting right up to that line. I want to play a real quick clip for you and get your reaction here. This is earlier today on CNN. They talked to someone who knew this shooter, and here's what he had to say.
Hi, Art. We're just getting some tape in of an acquaintance of James Hodgkinson, the 66-year-old shooter, describing some of his political, perhaps, motivations. Listen to this.
I just want to let people know that he wasn't evil, that he was, I guess, tired of some of the politics that are going on.
That's what we just heard. Perhaps he wasn't evil, just tired of the politics that's going on.
There you go. So that brings up a real First Amendment issue as to where do we take our speech? Certainly we can have a vigorous, even heated debate. We can be passionate about our ideas. At what point do we cross the line? At what point do we normalize violence, if not incite violence? And it's not just, it's all these artists like you're talking about, pointing guns, cutting off heads, having staged assassinations of Donald Trump, calling it theater in the park. And quite frankly, that had more in common with Saturday Night Live than it did with Shakespeare's play, if you look at the different elements of it. But I think that's a real key thing for us to look at. What do you think about that CNN clip?
Well, first off, I'm a Christian, and I wasn't always a Christian. Before I was a Christian, and I used to be on the left, you don't really believe in good and evil. I think this is actually one of the fundamental differences between liberals and conservatives, and in particular between Christians and non-Christians. I'm not even taking a debate on that, but just this idea that there is such a thing as good and evil. That's
an excellent point. They couldn't bring themselves to say, hey, no matter how heinous the crime, we can't call it evil. We've got to take a quick break here. That's the end of this segment. But if you want to see the rest of this interview, you can watch it on the Alex Jones channel on YouTube. We'll be right back for those of you watching on the internet with Lee Stranahan.
Electrify your day with Secret 12. It's like lightning in a bottle. We all have days in which we just can't seem to perform at the level we'd like to. Infowars Live Secret 12 is designed to naturally energize your body and mind with 2 great tasting and super high quality forms of vitamin B12. Proper vitamin and nutrient intake is essential to keep your body functioning at optimum levels. The reality is, it's hard to take in the proper amount of vitamins we need each day with our modern diets. Secret 12 by Infowars Live is an easy way to naturally upgrade your vitamin B12 intake and support your body's natural systems. It pairs 2 forms of vitamin B12 into one explosive formula. Vitamin B12 supports healthy energy levels through red blood cell formation and aiding in the body's natural processes, but it also assists with many other functions of the body. Electrify your mind and body and take your health to the next level. Experience the power of Secret 12 at InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com.
Vitamin Mineral Fusion. Visit InfoWarsLife.com to secure your canister. We have worked for years with our chemists and scientists to create the most powerful and affordable, great-tasting multivitamin formula available. Vitamin Mineral Fusion Drink Mix at InfoWarsLife.com is loaded with a full month's supply of essential vitamins, minerals, and amino acids that your body absolutely needs. In the history of InfoWars Life, we've brought out a lot of amazing products like Survival Shield X2, Super Male Vitality, and so many others. With its unique delivery system and proprietary manufacturing process designed for maximized effects, this formula is the platinum standard of multivitamin mineral products. And this part is most important. The ingredients in Vitamin Mineral Fusion are either plant-derived or of the highest quality lab standard. That means it's clean. That means it's pure. And rest assured, you're fighting the tip of the spear in the info war. That's InfoWarsLife.com and Vitamin Mineral Fusion. Take action now before we sell out. We have the new product at InfoWarsLife.com, BioTrue Selenium.
We've had so many requests over the years for selenium, and just recently, we were able to source a certified organic, bioavailable selenium from mustard seed extract. When you take selenium in the body, it actually benefits the detoxification systems in your body. It helps balance the thyroid gland. It helps detoxify.
Selenium is another one of those absolute must-haves.
The highest concentration of selenium is in the thyroid gland, but it's actually used all over the body. As a matter of fact, there's 25 genes in the body that are directly dependent upon selenium. So it really is a all-around nutrient that everybody really needs.
I'm taking it now every day. This is so key. BioTrue Selenium is the product, the best selenium that we could bring you. We believe it's the best out there at a very, very low price. Exclusively available at InfoWarsLife.com or by calling toll-free 888-253-3139. We're selling a product, DNA Force, that is the very best nutraceutical that we can produce. Dr. Group, you took years for you to develop DNA Force for us.
It's been something that I've been working on for a long time, Alex, because I think it's very, very important. What the aging process is when the cell replicates, we lose a little bit of our telomeres. Telomeres are the little cups on the end of our chromosomes.
And when it runs out, you start dying.
We chose the PQQ because it has over 175 different clinical trials. It's one of the most effective substances in the world. It works like an antioxidant. It works to repair nerve growth factor.
So this is a formula to deliver the maximum amount. It's in powder form.
We have so many 5-star reviews. I take this. This is the product that I take.
InfoWarsLife.com, and the profit we make. We fight the globals. We fight the New World Order. Secure your DNA Force today at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139.
David Knight here with Dr. Jerome Corsi. He's here in Austin. He's our Washington, D.C. bureau chief. But today he's here working on the setup of that bureau. And I wanted to talk to Dr. Corsi about what we just saw there and about a clip that I saw earlier today on CNN. I think, Dr. Corsi, the issue here is, where does the line on free speech drawn? Do we allow people to incite violence? And we're going to play a clip for you from CNN. Absolutely amazing what was said and the non-reaction from Wolf Blitzer as well as the reporter on the scene.
Oh, well, David, this is not what the First Amendment's about. The First Amendment is about the ability to express any ideas. I mean, you can certainly object to the policies of the Trump administration. You can't, though, call for violence. You can't say, you know, we're inciting, we want people to imitate us with, you know, shooting water guns at Donald Trump or beheadings. These are crossing the line. These are sending out a disinformation type of message to people out there who may not be emotionally stable.
And you can see that in those clips. They're escalating it. You know, first it's criticism, which is fine. We understand people have strong criticism of politicians, and certainly we do that here at Infowars, but we don't incite violence. We shouldn't do that. People should call us on that just as they would call us on an inaccuracy or whatever. We should never incite violence. There's a difference between shouting fire in a crowded theater. You know, that's not free speech to do that as a false alarm, and it's not free speech for these people to get up and use their podium in a theater to say, fire at my political enemies, and act out this violence, just as we saw in the clip there, the theater in the park in New York. They're using the bard as a beard for their incitement of violence and saying, hey, it's just Shakespeare.
Well, the classic definition of free speech is you have to tolerate speech that you don't want to hear, that is offensive to you or you don't like, an opinion. But as long as it's an opinion, as long as I'm stating a view, I'm saying I think this about a public policy, you're permitted to do that.
Yeah.
Now, we've got to understand the classic techniques of disinformation. Once you begin to desensitize a population that violence is acceptable, and you're doing it through these act-out scenes, which are really, play imitation, but they're communicating a message that you're desensitized to it's okay to have violence against the Trump administration. And look at the left. I mean, the left is completely intolerant. They don't want to hear speech that even in pure speech policy terms that they disagree with.
That's right.
They're intolerant. They want to shut that down. You can see that in the universities, where the universities are determined to have safe spaces and speakers who disagree with their leftist ideology. I mean, this now has crossed over into a form of Marxism, a form of socialism or communism, which is completely antithetic to free speech.
I want to play for you the clip. You haven't seen this clip from CNN, because I think the whole point that you're making here, how they become desensitized to the violence, the question is, has CNN, has Wolf Blitzer become desensitized to the violence? They talked to a person. We're going to play this clip for you. I think we've got that ready now. We're going to play this clip for you where they go out and they find somebody who knows this shooter, and I want you to see what he says, and I want you to see their reactions. Here's that clip.
All right, stand by, Art. We're just getting some tape in of an acquaintance of James Hodgkinson, the 66-year-old shooter, describing some of his political, perhaps, motivations. Listen to this.
I just want to let people know that he wasn't evil, that he was, I guess, tired of some of the politics that are going on.
That's what we just heard. Perhaps he wasn't evil, just tired of the politics that's going on. Tom Fuentes, the FBI. The lead
there we go. That's it.
Right
no talk back, no pushback against that. And of course, if I was a reporter there, or I would have a question about that. If they said, well, he wasn't evil, he just shot a bunch of people who were unarmed playing baseball. I don't care about what his politics are. I don't care that he's tired of hearing about politics. You don't pick up a gun and start shooting. And if somebody says something like that, why doesn't the reporter on the scene question him about, what do you mean that's not evil? Why doesn't Wolf Blitzer say that? Instead, they're desensitized as they're desensitizing you as to what's going on.
Well, it's a shocking clip. I mean, when you see CNN really, in a sense, endorsing that because someone doesn't like the politics of Donald Trump,
it's just the way it is.
It's excusable that they take a gun and go and try to kill congressmen, firing 50 rounds to try to kill a bunch of defenseless congressmen playing baseball. Now that's but see, all of a sudden it becomes acceptable in the left's view for Wolf Blitzer to say these outrageous things or not to object,
or to say nothing at all. Just say, yeah, hey, that's it.
In the left's view, it is delegitimate. Everything Donald Trump does is delegitimate. They don't accept the presidency. They don't accept that they lost. In other words, it's the same thing as they do on campuses. If you're not articulating the left's ideology, you can't be permitted to speak. You're going to be criminalized. Same thing that the communist Chinese did with thought reform. You're going to be put into a camp until you think right. And you can see it all the time with the left. I mean, they wanted to criminalize anyone who doubted that there was a climate change. Well, first of all, they had global warming. The data did not support the Earth is warming up, so they morphed it, and now it's climate change. But again,
we got to hide the decline. They said
it's ideology. It's ideology, and you're not allowed to oppose that. And if someone starts shooting or imprisoning climate deniers, in the left's view, that's completely okay. Because you're illegitimate.
That's right. Use the RICO statutes against people, confiscate their property without any trial or accusation, just as they would if they were coming after organized crime, just as we've seen them do in the past against abortion organizations, anti-abortion organizations, pro-life organizations. And that's what they have called for in terms of climate change, because it's a religion to them. This is religion to them. He wasn't tired of politics. It was his religion. And so to him, it was okay to take action this way. That's the amazing thing to me, that they would not have any reaction, that that would not be something that they would question. They would just simply say, well, yeah, he's not evil. He's just tired of the politics.
Well, David, that's a very important point. And I think we've got to make sure everybody understands how extremely left the Democratic Party has gone, and also the Soros-funded hard left. This is not the Democratic Party of Hubert Humphrey, Jack Kennedy. This is the Democratic Party of Che Guevara, Karl Marx, Saul Alinsky, and it's out for a revolution. Now, the revolution means that there's going to be ideas that you're going to be permitted to have, and there's going to be ideas that if you hold them, like Donald Trump ideas, make America great, the First Amendment, the Constitution. Well, now you're a criminal. You're a criminal of the state, and you have a right to be shot, imprisoned, tortured, whatever the left wants to do to you, because the left in its ideological purity feels justified in threatening or destroying anyone who objects to them. Now, it's not very far to see this as the leftist fascism, which it really truly is.
Yeah, they call themselves anti-fascist, and yet they are exhibiting fascism themselves.
Well, they're exhibiting
authoritarianism, yeah.
Intolerance, this political intolerance, that the self-righteousness. See, our Constitution, our Founding Fathers had the First Amendment because we wanted to believe that nobody had ideas that couldn't be challenged. That to really get to the best ideas, it had to be challenged. Now here, what the far left is doing is they're saying, if President Trump tries to make America great again, tries to enforce immigration laws, well, then he deserves to be killed. Now, this is the kind of thing where you see a deterioration of politicalization of the Department of Justice, because the Department of Justice then does not go after Hillary Clinton. Oh, that's all right. She can amass all kinds of powers and run a criminal charity because, of course, she's on the right side. She's going to do the right things with that money. Okay, and they will not prosecute Loretta Lynch for interfering in the FBI investigation.
That's right. She's above reproach, above prosecution.
But they'll take a completely vacuous, no evidence meme like this Russian collusion, and knowing it has no evidence, they will now morph it. So it's no longer just Russian collusion. Now it's that Trump obstructed justice by firing Comey. So they've morphed without admitting they lost the first argument.
That's right. I want to go to something, too, because much has been made about the fact that this guy was a volunteer for the Bernie Sanders campaign. I'm not going to say that Bernie Sanders is at fault here. Well, we're out of time, Dr. Corsi. Thank you so much for joining us. And again, that shows us why we've picked Dr. Corsi as our Washington correspondent, his vast experience and knowledge. Thank you for joining us. I'm David Knight with Infowars.com and Dr. Jerome Corsi. Thank you so much.
David, great pleasure to be with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alex Jones here with a very important news update to anybody out there that wants to be prepared. But it goes beyond being prepared. Our bodies absolutely must have the good halogen iodine or we will die. And you look at all of the thyroid problems and all the people that don't have energy and that have all sorts of hormone problems. And from my research and a lot of just mainline research, it leads back to iodine over and over and over again. It's as important as vitamin C. If you don't get iodine, you die. But most people are just deficient, so they're low energy, they're sick. You got to have iodine in your body so that your body can produce the hormones you need. It is the base to so many things. And since I got into iodine 4 years ago, we've helped change the entire paradigm by developing and bringing to the public deep earth crystals from 7,000 to 12,000 feet of the purest iodine available. Other iodine comes from the ocean or from other byproducts of chemical facilities, and it's tainted. It's bound. It's not absorbable. I tried it. And I had incredible effects even with dirty iodine because the body needs it. When you don't have iodine, it absorbs the chlorine, the fluoride, and all these other bad halogens. Do yourself and your family a favor and check out the importance of iodine for yourself. I think you're going to be blown away. And whatever you do, support the broadcast and get a bottle of Survival Shield Nascent Iodine X2. Also consult your physician because if you've been deficient in it or have other issues, it can have some dramatic effects. As for me and most folks I talk to, it's been a game changer in the positive column, but still consult your physician because iodine is no joke. It's a key building block of the body. And if you haven't had it for a long time and suddenly have it, some folks say they've experienced things like a detoxing effect and things like that. You've got to have vitamin C. You've got to have iodine to live. You've got to have water to live. Iodine is key. You must have it, but consult your physician first before you get powerful Survival Shield Nascent Iodine X2 at InfoWarsLife.com, or call toll-free. We can answer your questions, 888-253-3139.
Let me state this clearly, colleagues. I have never met with or had any conversation with any Russians or any foreign officials concerning any type of interference with any campaign or election in the United States. Further, I have no knowledge of any such conversations by anyone connected to the Trump campaign. I was your colleague in this body for 20 years, at least some of you, and and the suggestion that I participated in any collusion, that I was aware of any collusion with the Russian government to hurt this country, which I have served with honor for 35 years, or to undermine the integrity of our democratic process, is an appalling and detestable lie.
Mr. Comey told us when he was here last week that he had a very specific recollection. In fact, he chased it down through the intelligence community and was not able to find a scintilla of evidence to that effect. Then he sought out both Republicans and Democrats up here to tell them that this was false, that there was no such facts anywhere that corroborated what the New York Times had reported. Nonetheless, after that,
the failing New York Times leading the way in fake news.
We spent really substantially more time on that than we have on the Russian active measures. We've been through thousands of pages of information, interviewed witnesses, and everything else. We're really no different than where we were when this whole thing started. But and there's been no reports that I know of any factual information in that regard. Are you aware of any such information of collusion?
Is that arose from the dossier, so-called dossier, Senator Risch? Is that what you're referring to?
Well, we're anywhere.
I believe that's the report that Senator Franken hit me with when I was testifying, and it, I think, has been pretty substantially discredited, but you would know more than I. But what was said that would suggest I participated in the continuing communications with Russians over as a surrogate is absolutely false.
You're a longtime colleague, but we heard Mr. Coates and we heard Admiral Rogers say essentially the same thing, when it was easy just to say if the answer was no, no.
Well, it would have been easier to say if it was yes, yes, but both would have been improper. Deputy Rosenstein's letter dealt with a number of things. When Mr. Comey declined the Clinton prosecution, that was really a usurpation of the authority of the federal prosecutors in the Department of Justice. It was a stunning development. The
bombshell.
FBI
That's bombshell.
is the investigative team. They don't decide prosecution policies. And so that was a thunderous thing. He also commented at some length on the declination of the Clinton prosecution, which you should not normally, and you shouldn't do. Mr. Comey, perhaps he didn't know, but I basically recused myself the first day I got into the office because I never accessed files. I never learned the names of investigators. I never met with them. I never asked for any documentation. The documentation, what little I received, was mostly already in the media and was presented by the senior ethics, public responsibility, professional responsibility attorney in the department.
General.
And I made an honest and proper decision to recuse myself, as I told Senator Feinstein and the members of the committee I would do when they confirmed me.
General Sessions, respectfully, you're not answering the question.
Well, what is the question?
The question is, Mr. Comey said that there were matters with respect to the recusal that were problematic and he couldn't talk about them. What are they?
Why don't you tell me? There are none, Senator Wyden. There are none. I can tell you that for absolute certainty. This is a secret innuendo being leaked out there about me, and I don't appreciate it. And I've tried to give my best and truthful answers to any committee I've appeared before, and it's really people are suggesting through innuendo that I have been not honest about matters, and I've tried to be honest.
So I want to ask you just point blank, why did you sign the letter recommending the firing of Director Comey when it violated your recusal?
It did not violate my recusal. It did not violate my recusal. That would be the answer to that. And the letter that I signed represented my views that had been formulated for some time.
Mr. Chairman, just if I can finish, that answer, in my view, doesn't pass the smell test. The president tweeted repeatedly about his anger at investigations into his associates in Russia. The day before you wrote your letter, he tweeted that the collusion story was a total hoax and asked, when will this taxpayer-funded charade end? I don't think your answer passes the smell test.
There are two investigations here. There is a special counsel investigation. There is also a congressional investigation. And you are obstructing that congressional investigation by not answering these questions. And I think your silence, like the silence of Director Coates, like the silence of Admiral Rogers, speaks volumes.
I would say that I have consulted with senior career attorneys in the department, and they believe this is consistent with my duties.
Last night, Admiral Rogers spent almost 2 hours in closed session with almost the full committee, fulfilling his commitment to us in the hearing that in closed session he would answer the question, and I think it was thoroughly answered, and all members were given an opportunity to ask questions. I just want the record to show that with what Senator Heinrich stated.
I am on this side of the dais. So a very simple question that should be asked is, did Donald Trump or any of his associates in the campaign collude with Russia in hacking those emails and releasing them to the public? That's where we started 6 months ago. We have now heard from 6 of the 8 Democrats in this committee, and to my knowledge, I don't think a single one of them asked that question. They've gone down lots of other rabbit trails about that question. Maybe that is because Jim Comey said last week, as he said to Donald Trump, that on 3 times he assured him he was not under investigation. Maybe it's because multiple Democrats on this committee have stated they have seen no evidence thus far after 6 months of our investigation and 10 months or 11 months of an FBI investigation of any such collusion. Do you like spy fiction? John le Carré, Daniel Silva, Jason Matthews?
Yeah, Alan first.
Do you like Russian salad dressing?
Ignatius's book.
Do you like Jason Bourne or James Bond movies?
No. Yes.
Have you ever, in any of these fantastical situations, heard of a plot line so ridiculous that a sitting United States senator and an ambassador of a foreign government colluded at an open setting with hundreds of other people to pull off the greatest caper in the history of espionage?
Thank you for saying that, Senator Cotton. It's just like through the looking glass. I mean, what is this? I explained how, in good faith, I said I had not met with Russians because they were suggesting I, as a surrogate, had been meeting continuously with Russians. I said I didn't meet with them. And now the next thing you know, I'm accused of some reception, plotting some sort of influence campaign for the American election. It's just beyond my capability to understand, and I really appreciate, Mr. Chairman, the opportunity at least to be able to say publicly I didn't participate in that and know nothing about it.
Let's turn to the potential crimes that we know have happened. Leaks of certain information. Here's a short list of what I have. The contents of alleged transcripts of alleged conversations between Mr. Flynn and Mr. Kislyak. The contents of President Trump's phone calls with Australian and Mexican leaders, the content of Mr. Trump's meetings with the Russian foreign minister and the ambassador, the leak of the Manchester bombing suspect's identity and crime scene photos, and last week, within 20 minutes of this committee meeting in a classified setting with Jim Comey, the leak of what the basis of Mr. Comey's innuendo was. Are these leaks serious threats to our national security, and is the Department of Justice taking them with the appropriate degree of seriousness in investigating and ultimately going to prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law?
Thank you, Senator Cotton. We have had one successful case very recently in Georgia. That person has been denied bail, I believe, and is being held in custody.
That's reality
but
winner.
Some of these leaks, as you well know, are extraordinarily damaging to the United States security, and we have got to restore a regular order principle.
Thanks for joining us tonight. Remember to join us again tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central.
I am very proud to announce the introduction of the highest quality Infowars Biome Defense probiotic. We wanted to come out with the largest spectrum of high-quality, known probiotics that have been proven to improve overall digestion and health and detoxification in the body. Biome Defense is an exclusive blend of 50 billion live and active cultures from over 23 different probiotic strains that are known to support digestion and intestinal function. Our researchers are confident that we have been able to develop what will be the leading probiotic on the market. Secure your Biome Defense in ultra strength or regular strength at InfoWarsLife.com today and get started supporting your digestive system naturally. We've been testing this formula for years, but this is the limited first run to the public, so please take advantage of it today. Support your own health and support the InfoWar.
Welcome to the Infowars Nightly News. Today is Wednesday, June 14th, 2017. I'm Millie Weaver, and here's what's coming up on the news tonight.
Tonight, confirmed the gunman was an anti-Trump leftist. 66-year-old James Hodgkinson, the gunman who targeted Republican lawmakers during an attempted massacre this morning, is now known to be a huge Bernie Sanders supporter who called President Donald Trump a traitor and wanted to destroy him. Meanwhile, Senator Rand Paul says the quick response of the officers on the scene prevented